Hello, everybody, and I want to welcome you to the Winning Point podcast. And first thing I want to do is basically give you a little bit of understanding of what it is what we're trying to accomplish here with this podcast. The Winning Point podcast, the mission statement here is the Winning Point podcast shares coaches' perspectives on greatness, life lessons, success stories of their athletes and teams in order to inspire young athletes and their parents interested in learning more about optimizing their mind and body in the game and life. So I welcome you. My name is Tony Sargentopoulos, and I'm here with my co-host, Amber Landsman. Are we going with Amber Landsman?
Yes,
Okay.
we are.
Amber Landsman.
Kept my last name. I like Amber Landsman better
Okay.
than Amber Butcher.
I hope Michael's not listening, but
It's all right. He's Butcher. I'm Amber Butcher on Facebook. We're okay.
That's true. That's true. Very true. But we're looking for topics that we feel are going to be interesting to people as far as overall wellness in life, both physical and mental. Which brings up the topic we're going to talk about today. A lot of times, with what I do with TKS Athletics, working with young athletes, physically and mentally, we talk about physical strength versus mental strength and the importance of both. But what we don't talk about is which one is more important. So today we're going to give our opinions on the importance of both and why we feel one or the other are more important. And the way I want to start this off is quite some time ago, I read a magazine article, sports psychologist, whose name escapes me at the moment. But what he said, and I quote, "Mental toughness is the ability to consistently perform toward the upper range of your talent and skill regardless of competitive circumstance." So what I want to do now is I want to break that down just a little bit. Again, looking at the beginning, the ability to consistently perform toward the upper range of your talent and skill. So when you look at that and you break that down, we're talking about being the best you. We're talking about your ability. Everybody has a certain skill set and a certain ability and a certain capability from a physical standpoint. Your ability to stay in that range over a longer period of time takes mental toughness and mental strength. And I think that's what he's trying to point out there. And then if you look at the second half of it, regardless of competitive circumstances. So when you look at circumstances, you're looking at, be they obstacles that are environmental, in other words, performing in a soccer game outside in the elements with rain or snow and so on and so forth, are the obstacles, be they an opponent, somebody who matches you in every shape, in form of the words bigger, faster, and stronger. And so your ability to overcome and persevere through those moments for a longer period of time takes mental toughness. And so that's where I feel that mental toughness does take, or should I say supersede, that of physical toughness or physical strength. And what I wanted to do now is go into physical strength and what does that mean? Everything that goes with that. If you're looking at physical strength, just for a moment, there's different definitions on how people look at physical strength. Yeah. They look at physical strength. Some people, when they talk about physical strength, they talk about a marathon runner and their ability to run that 26 plus miles, and virtually within seconds after the race, they're walking around and their oxygen levels are back to normal, and they seem like they didn't even run a race.
Yeah.
And then some people look at physical strength like the ability to take a heavy object and move it, whether you're a power lifter. If we want to talk about the bench press, somebody who could bench 350 pounds one time, some people look at that as physical strength.
Some people will look at yogi being able to hold a pose as physical strength.
Yes.
For a long period of time.
Yeah.
Or even physical strength being able to sit in one posture for a long period of time.
Absolutely.
It's physical strength.
Yes, and so there's so many different definitions, and we just gave 3 examples, and there's a plethora of examples out there in terms of physical strength. So it's all about how you perceive it. The importance of physical strength. When I say that mental strength, in my opinion, is more important than physical strength, I don't want to undermine the importance of physical strength because of the benefits. Now, when you're looking at it from an athletic standpoint, as an athlete, there's so many different benefits in terms of helping you perform better. Number one is correcting muscular imbalances. And when you talk about that, just to give one example, if you're talking about muscular imbalances, you could be talking about the quadricep muscle group versus the hamstring muscle group. You're talking about, and we're going to use some terms here, agonistic versus antagonistic muscle groups, where the quadricep is the larger muscle and is the stronger muscle. And, so if you look at it from an exercise science term, the quadricep should be stronger than the hamstring muscle. And there's all kind of different percentages that go into that, which could be a whole other show. And
it's also, Tony, a dominant muscle group that we use a lot more when we walk stairs, and we just use our quads more. We have to really focus on strengthening and paying attention to the back of the muscle groups in general. So
and that point being made, that's where injury comes into play.
Yes.
When we don't have the proper intervention from a professional strength coach, what happens is we do things the wrong way. We don't understand those muscular imbalances, and that's where you have your hamstring tears and your pulls and your strains and so many other problems that go with that for so many other reasons. So physical strength does play a huge role in this particular situation. It increases power production. All right, and power is very important. Your ability to move an object over a certain distance has everything
And
to
time.
do. Yeah, exactly. And there's the equation.
Yes.
That has a huge role, and so physical strength plays a huge role in that. And then when you're looking at increasing muscular endurance, which is longevity. Being able to perform at that highest level, like we just talked about earlier, over and over again. Just as an example, when we talk about the game of football, you always hear the old adage, the fourth quarter is always the most important one. It doesn't really matter where you're at in the first quarter, it matters where you're at the end. And that goes with any sport. It matters how you finish, not how you began. Well, your physical development plays a huge role there. So I don't want to undermine the importance of physical strength, and say that it doesn't mean anything.
We all know that you have to have, depending on your sport, you have to have a substantial amount of any forms of the strength we just described, whether it be muscular, endurance, power, overall strength. You have to have a certain amount of that physical strength to be an athlete and a good athlete, and so it can't be neglected. It's going to be what most people think is the primary thing that's going to get them to be a great athlete, is the physical component. But we are here to say that we both agree that that mental component is got to be there. And that's why you can be as physical as you want, and you can be as strong as you want physically, but that's where that mental component will really show. If you don't have that strong mind to go with that strong body, your weaknesses are going to show on the field and then in everything else.
And I think that's something that, and for those of you out there that don't know this, Coach Amber has been one of my colleagues for quite some time now. We've been together doing this for probably 8 years. When we started with another company, the House of Speed, when they were here in the Youngstown area, and then we moved on, and I started TKS Athletics, and Coach Amber, obviously having her own entities out there that she Fit to Protect, and so on and so forth. And with her extensive background, I think that we both understand that when we teach this to the athletes, we always talk about, it doesn't really matter how fast you are or how strong you are or how big you are if you can't overcome adversity in the moment. And so, looking at mental strength, which is where we are gearing this entire conversation towards, what is it? Mental strength is discipline, it's motivation, it's self-awareness and the ability to develop self-actualization, which helps to take that gift that you have physically and enhance it that much more to allow you to be the best you can be. Physical strength, if we're talking about bigger, faster, and stronger, in a lot of ways it's genetic. It's in the DNA. There's some people, we always use that term genetic freak. We see a father who was 6'6" and the mother who was 6'3", and the kid is 6'8", and immediately every coach is eyeballing that individual. All right, because if it's a girl, they've got a basketball / volleyball player. If it's a boy, you have everything from a pitcher to a basketball player to a wide receiver in football and so on and so forth, to an elite soccer player, and the list goes on for both boys and girls. And so what you have to understand is that ability to have that discipline and that motivation to set goals, to stick to those goals, longevity being the key. And so not to say that, physically accomplishing something in the moment won't enhance mental strength, because it will. When you do something in the moment, if you didn't think that you could dunk a basketball and you step up and somebody challenges you and you dunk that basketball, you are going to increase your confidence levels by 100. And so that ability there, it was mentally increased. Physically, you increase the mental strength. So we're looking at it from a different standpoint now for one reason, and we're talking about longevity. So, and mental strength, self-actualization outweighs the physical. The physical is something that you're doing in the moment, whether it's in one part of one game or whether it's throughout the entire game. It's in over a couple of hours. But when you're talking about preparing yourself for the game, for the match, for the meet, when you're talking about that 6-week cycle, that you're going through, that microcycle, that mesocycle, periodization, when you're talking about that, it's the ability to not only go in there and follow that workout that has been given to you.
The commitment side of it.
The commitment side of it. It's the ability, so, and here's an example. You have a 4-day-a-week cycle that your trainer is putting you through. So much aerobic, so much anaerobic, and everything that you're doing, your eating schedule's in front of you. And make no doubt about it, that's another show in itself,
Yes.
is the eating schedule. But so, you get in there for that 1 week and you accomplish that and you're exhausted, and what you're not aware of maybe in that moment is that now that you've accomplished that, more sets, more reps, more time, maybe another day's added on, and we're looking for muscle confusion. We're looking for the body to never adapt to what it is we're teaching you to do. And so you have to continuously challenge yourself more and more and more. So now the physical becomes more mental, because now you have to continuously tell yourself every day by setting goals that, you have to convince yourself. It has to be a convincing moment for you that this is going to make you the best you that you can be. And so that's why, in my opinion, the mental side of it is more important than the physical.
Yeah. Well, I also think you're talking about setting goals, but a lot of times the things we do every day as athletes, and even just as adults as we get older, the things that we do to reach us toward our goals every day, those everyday things, the mundane, the things that we don't think are, it's not the winning shot, the crowds aren't cheering for us, but we still are doing things. It's the small things, the mundane things every day that are bringing us in the direction of making that winning shot. And so there's a big mental component in finding that deeper sense of commitment to why we're doing it, which I think is mental, the mental commitment you have to doing something that doesn't pay rewards in huge ways all the time. And I think that's where we've really gone awry with a lot of our, instant gratification. We all want to be athletes and millionaires and, pro at everything without putting in all of the time mentally and preparing. And when you think about a baseball or a football game, they, like you said, they mentally prepare way before the game, even weeks sometimes, to play a certain team. But also we know how important it is to have that mental presence in the moment. that it's just beyond the physical strength of going out there or the skill that you've gained from practicing or that you've inherited through genetics, that it's more than that mental calmness in the face of stress. Or think about quarterbacks, and kickers. I mean, there's so much mental into it. It's not even about brute strength when you think about a kicker, right? We know the Browns, right?
I'm not
a kicker.
I feel for the Browns fans. I really do.
Yes, but that's where you see the mental component really out in the field or in the game is when it comes down to it. A lot of times, I remember as a basketball player, when I would get to the free throw line, how my mind made me miss the shot more than my body did because I didn't see myself confident enough to make the shot. And as soon as that thought came into my head, I didn't make the shot. So it's just interesting. You don't even know what's happening sometimes when you're in the middle of a game. But if you really and like the Seahawks, they're doing a lot of meditation and mindfulness to try to improve their game through mental practices.
I'm not real happy with them right now. I'm a Packers fan, so I wish they wouldn't be doing that. I wish the Seahawks would quit that, but and I didn't mean to interrupt you on that.
No, go for it.
And just to add to that, I'm going to use a figure that that everybody knows, and you love him or you hate him. LeBron James, at times will practice his free throw shooting. He'll shoot 300 free throws before every game. And you don't think of him in that way. People look at the physical, there it is, there's that word, the physical strength. He is a physical specimen when he walks out on the court. Every bit of 6'8", 260 pounds of him with body fat percentages well below what most people have. And he steps out on the court and people think that he just automatically was built in a laboratory and just put out there. And then when the game's over, they just put him back in the laboratory. And that's not the way it is. It is a grueling, this is 15 years now that he's played in the NBA. If you look at the percentages, it's well below 10% that play that long in the NBA. And so he did not get there just from his physical ability. It's that grind, that self-awareness, that discipline, that motivation that he has on a daily basis to either work out before the game, then go to the game, perform at its highest levels under a lot of adversity, a lot of booing, a lot of yelling. When you have 20,000 people yelling at you, that weighs on you after a while. Yet he is able to continuously grind through that and perform at his highest levels on a nightly basis. And so this is where we talk about mental being so much more important than physical, but we again do not want to undermine the physical part of it because you need that for so many other, for so many reasons.
Yeah, it's in the equation just as much as the mental component. But like you said in the very beginning when we started, what we first broke apart was the capability to work at the highest level. You have to have a higher ratio of mental strength in order to your body. And they even say that with training, like if you're lifting something, when people, usually 95% of people will stop way beyond their limit. Not that we should all train to our limits at all, all the time, or even some of us any of the time, but there's always so much more left in the tank, and that comes from that mental connection to the physical body.
Yeah. In 7 years of powerlifting, when I competed in WMPF for 7 years, unfortunately in that sport, or maybe fortunately in that sport, you have to lift to your limits and then some. Absolute strength is the key word. I wish I would have known then what I know now in terms of how to train for that. But the one thing I always did and why I felt that I was successful in those 7 years was I always visualized myself in the moment lifting the weight before I even lifted it. And so it always seemed to help me. When you can visualize yourself in the moment, setting your goal and achieving it before you've even achieved it, and really believe in it. Really believe in it. It helps not only when you succeed in that moment, but when you fail in that moment, if you're strong enough mentally to look past that and look at it as if to say, I failed in the moment. I saw myself succeeding. I failed in the moment. I want that moment bad enough to go get it. And so that is something that is huge.
I love that.
Yeah.
I think that might be a good place to try to wrap up today.
Yeah.
I like that finishing statement there of
You just got to remember, as we wrap this show up, the mind will quit on you 1,000 times before your body ever will. It's amazing what the body can do if you allow the mind to put you in a situation to accomplish the goals that you want to accomplish. And so with that being said, we want to thank you today for being part of our show. We appreciate you listening. We have so many more topics that we want to bring to you today over the course of time. If you have any topics you want to hear about, by all means, contact us. Let us know what it is you're looking for. So if you have any ideas or topics that you want to reach out to us with, we would love to hear from you and get those on the show. And we love talking to you guys. Thank you for joining us here on The Winning Point. Looking forward to talking to you soon. Thank you, Coach Amber.
Thank you.
I'm Coach Tony, and talk to you soon.